Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to Lazio Lounge. If you're a Lazio fan, Lazio supporter, or just want to update it about everything happening to this club, La Prima Squadra della Capitale, please subscribe to this podcast. You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. We are also on YouTube. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Alexa, wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there. So if you want to be updated with everything about Lazio, you know where to find us, and tell your Lazio friends as well to join us. Lazio beat Bologna, and I know my friend Alasdair loves the fact that I love to talk about referee. But Lazio Bologna last year, Lazio dominated the first half. Fabian, who was already on a yellow card, did a foul on Ciro Immobile. Now it's called step on foot. That was a clear second yellow card, but the ref forgot to send off the player, and Fabian at the end of the first half made the assist for the equalizer of Bologna, and Bologna won that game. Yesterday, Pobega was on a yellow card and made a foul on Guendouzi. That was a clear yellow card. This time, the ref didn't make the mistake. Pobega was sent off and Lazio won the game. Now, I'm not saying that Lazio won because we were one man up, but I want to point out that referee mistakes, especially when we're talking about the red card in the first half, have a huge impact in games. Last year, Lazio was penalized by this terrible mistake about the ref. This year, Lazio wasn't, and this is one of the reasons why we beat Bologna. Alasdair, I know you love talking about the ref, but this is something we have to point out, right?
I mean, not like you're a man who holds a grudge, Vittorio. That is spectacular. Not only how much you like talking about referees, but that your memory, you've got like a database in your head of decisions that go against Lazio, and I'm genuinely impressed by the kind of detail you've got there. Yeah, this was completely without doubt, though. This one, I mean, what the hell was he doing? It was an absolutely crazy thing to do, especially because he gave away the second yellow, flying off his 3 feet through the back of Guendouzi. But while he's pressing him in his own box with no one else really around him, it just made no sense. I mean, it was a gift, really, because up until that point, it was a bit of a struggle. I mean, Lazio were dominating possession and they were playing most of the game in Bologna's half, but they were struggling to kind of carve out proper opportunities. So, yeah, I mean, I think it made a huge difference in this game.
Well, we have to say that, yes, yesterday probably wasn't the best Lazio we saw so far this season. We had a couple of players who, I don't want to say didn't show up, but didn't play at its best. Pedro, yesterday, who was, for me, a surprise. I didn't expect him to see him starting. Didn't play his best match this season. And you talk about chances. Shall we talk about what Tati Castellano did in the first half? I mean, he could have walked and scored a goal. Instead, he tried to score directly from midfield. He had nobody in front of him, just the goalkeeper. Why on the hell you try to score from midfield when you can just dribble past the goalkeeper and enter the goal with a ball in your feet? That's something that concerned me. Huge opportunity, right? And when you see the same.
He's just traveled back from Argentina like 48 hours ago. He couldn't be bothered running to the end of the pitch.
Yeah. He didn't walk from Argentina to Italy. There are planes now. You can fly. You can sit there.
So, wow! Well, that is big news.
Technology arrived.
Yeah, but do you not think it's so impressive and encouraging that you're right? I don't think Lazio did play their best game by far, actually, and they still end up winning 3-0 very comfortably. Okay, with or without the red card, they still ended up with a comfortable 3-0 win against a good Bologna team that's playing in the Champions League, that was here in Rome just before the break and beat Roma. Okay, not the result it perhaps used to be, but still, they were unbeaten in 9 games, Bologna. They've won their last 3. I mean, this is like a Bologna team that was actually starting to really find some momentum, some form. So
yep.
Lazio to not be at their best and still get through a tricky game with a very comfortable win, red card or not, I think it's so impressive.
Can we point out, even though it's not something new, but we score from a corner kick? I'm still getting used to this, Alison.
Yeah, I I knew you were going to bring this up. It's I think every time it happens this season, even if we score like 25 goals from corners, we're still going to mention it every time, aren't we? Because it's such a novelty. I mean, what was better though, the fact we scored from a corner again, or Gigot's completely mental celebration?
He did it in front of you, right? I think
Yeah,
it was a direct message to you.
I mean, if anyone didn't see this, he was completely out of control. He just kind of sprinted all the way back down the pitch to the Lazio bench, which is on the other side of the pitch, and he's kind of roaring like some warrior who's soaked in blood, charging into battle or something, and then I'm pretty sure he did a gladiator themed
I think so, yeah.
the kneel. Yeah, I just went and saw it last week, and I was like, I'm sure that's what that's from, but I'm not sure enough that I'm going to say it. But yeah, it was great because he's a lot. I think we've said this already. He just looks like a lot of fun, Gigot. Like he's a big unit of a guy. Clearly wears his heart on his sleeve, and I guess I would have expected something big when he scores his first Lazio goal, but I wasn't sure he was going to go that big. It was amazing.
You said out of control, and this is something I was concerned yesterday. I turned to my son and said, look if he doesn't get sent off today. He was close, Alasdair, and this is something that concerned me a little bit because you said everything about Gigot, and I think it's pretty clear what type of player we're having with Gigot, right? A fighter, very physical, but he has to control about a little bit himself because, every Lazio player is just a foul away from a red card, and he was very close to that, right?
Well, he got the yellow, didn't he? And
Yeah, of course.
And there was this kind of like battle going on between him and Santi Castro, and I was starting to think because Castro was winding me up because he just like he's quite a physical player actually. Castro, he doesn't look like it necessarily, but he is. He really throws his body around, but he was spending so much time on the floor, and I was wondering if it was one of these tests of a defender's patience as much as anything. I mean, there were lots of kind of like physical battles going on between the two of them, but also I think it would just be the frustration of a guy who's consistently like rolling around on the ground. There was one which was like he got fouled and fell over, and then he basically his momentum had stopped, and then you can see in the replay he flings himself back into the air again to do another 3 rolls. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it looked to me Castro is the typical Scottish player. I mean, I don't know. It so annoys me to see players like that. When we were still 0-0, every Bologna player died on the pitch at least once. And the goalkeeper wasted 3 minutes for every kick through. I mean, what is the ref doing? Seriously. I hope nobody watched it, but last Saturday, I probably saw the worst game ever, Milan-Juventus. This Italian league is becoming, and you have also to blame the referee because when a team is trying to win and the other one is losing time, they never give you a yellow card for wasting time. So, they have to do something. Come on.
Generally in my life and in my job, I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to convince people that Serie A has changed, and you do get a lot of really good games, and there are a lot of very attacking and proactive teams out there now, which is true. But these things do also happen, and my God, that Milan Juve game was something else, and that was the one that everyone will have probably tuned into if they're going to watch one Serie A game this weekend. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of this weird thing with the time wasting stuff and the goal kicks and so on. I don't really know what's happened with the last World Cup was when they really went crazy for this added time idea, where it's like, well, the way we're going to cut this out is we have to be really extreme about the added time and be very exact about it. because only that will get people to actually stop wasting time so much. And obviously, it was a bit over the top, but maybe that's what you thought at the time. Maybe that's what's needed to actually change behavior. And now
Yeah,
it seems like we're back to normal because there's like 5-10 minutes being wasted in a half. And at the end, obviously, they just put up 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever, because that's what you normally do. And so I don't really know. We've just not got anywhere with that.
yeah. And yesterday, you have to point out that the ref gave 2 minutes of extra time in the first half, and those 2 minutes wasn't played because the Bologna player died for 1 minute and 30, and then the goalkeeper took the kick and wasted the other 30 seconds. And when the ball was up in the air, the ref whistled. So it's a joke. But luckily enough, and this is very important, Alasdair, because that's the typical game that Lazio don't win. Maybe you get nervous, you get a player sent off, and now suddenly, instead of being 1 man up, you're 10 men against 10 men, and everything can happen. So I think that's something we have to point out. We didn't play the best game so far, but this was a critical game. This wasn't an easy game, and we won it. So I think the mentality of this team, obviously, this was the 7th win in a row. So obviously the boost of confidence is really high, and that helped. But this team has the right mentality, the right attitude to win even this type of difficult games, right?
Yeah, and recently, that's 7 in a row now, and it's 11 in the last 12 games wins, and that's impressive enough. But the thing is that, like you say, they're winning lots of different types of games, and okay, there have been matches where it's a case of blowing the opposition away, and like that Como game, for example, even though it was tight for a long time in that match, you end up winning 5-1, and the attacking power is there to see. But you also have those scrappier games, the Cali rematch, the Monza game. You have the dramatic, the Porto game where they didn't settle for the draw and they kept going. There's been some comebacks in there. And yeah, this was a kind of difficult, I don't know. So there is some sort of pressure about you're at home, you're against 10 men, you got to do this now. And Bologna were stubborn and they were well organized, and their centre backs were doing pretty well in terms of clearing the area if they tried to get the crosses in and so on. Because Lazio was doing some pretty good work in the absence of Tavares to be the one who's, being showing that pace and directness to get down the line, and but his crossing just wasn't really getting us anywhere. And ultimately, the corner opens it up, and Zaccagni finished it basically, because that was such a Zaccagni goal. But I think we need to talk about him because he's really, really hitting his stride now, and he's being looked upon as the next big attacking leader of this team in the way that Alberto, Anderson, Immobile, Sergei, these guys used to be. But he's always been a bit of a moments player, flashes of greatness, but not huge levels of consistency. But now he's got 3 goals in his last 3 Serie A games. And I don't know, Vittorio, I feel like he's really growing into this this responsibility and this new kind of role in the team. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I don't want to start a rant that I already did against Spalletti. I mean, not calling Zaccagni is simply embarrassing. I mean, how can you pretend that he's not the best striker we have at the moment? Not the number 9, but I mean, if you're playing with 2 strikers, then it's Zaccagni with someone else. I mean, that's not even a discussion. But I think he's becoming more and more leader, not as someone who talk to the team, but more as he played. We talk about the corner kick. I mean, that was a perfect corner, right? It was difficult for the goalkeeper to come out and grab the ball, and even difficult for the defender, because if you deflect that ball, you're probably scoring an own goal. So Zaccagni is growing, and he's incredible. The other important thing is he's been subbed yesterday again, and it's not the first time. He just scored. He got subbed. I mean, Ciro Immobile or Luis Alberto would have destroyed the locker room of the Stadio Olimpico after that. And instead, he was pleased. He didn't say nothing, gave a high five to everybody. that's another leadership type of message you're sending, right? Nobody is untouchable. Even if I score, even if probably I'm the best player on the pitch, I get subbed. So it's perfect. And let's not forget that we're playing Thursday, a very important game, and then Sunday. So we need to rest every player as possible. So I think, seriously, Zaccagni is one of the best winger in Italy. So
yeah, it's hard to argue with that on current form. But it has taken him a little bit of time to get there. And speaking about how he's a moments player, the Euros was actually a good example of that, because he provided the best moment of the Euros for Italy, but he hardly played for them.
Thanks for the pain.
Hey, look, we didn't have any moments really, so at least you had one.
Well, but you are used to. We go to the Euros to win it, but they don't work out. But Alasdair, I want to point out something, because we mentioned Gigot. He came in the beginning of the second half for Romagnoli, who looks like he had a little problem, but it shouldn't be nothing serious. I want to point out another thing. You talk about Zaccagni leadership. We have to talk about Lazio bench. Players that come in from the bench this season had a huge impact, right? I think this is the 9th goal, a substitution score for Lazio this year. Gigot, Deli-Bashiru. This is huge, right? Because we always said, well, Lazio bench is not great. And I think we don't have Messi on the bench, but who comes in? Comes in with the right mentality. And it showed it yesterday in a very difficult game. Not only Baroni was courage enough to change the team, right? We started with a 4-3-3 and we switched to a 4-2-3-1. So very offensive mind type of football, with Dia coming in instead of Vecino. And really great impact from a substitution again.
Yeah, and I really liked the reaction to Deli-Bashiru's goal as well, because ultimately it didn't really matter. The result was already, the game was over. But the team realized what that could mean to him. He's not had many minutes, many opportunities. And so for him to come off the bench and score that goal, even though it's just the cherry on top of the cake, it means a lot to him. And we saw his teammates, rushing around him and hugs and everything. And it would be quite easy for people to just kind of turn around and go back to the center circle because the game was over. But I like that. I think it goes to show there is such a good atmosphere within the squad at the moment. And Zaccagni's spoken about that as well, about how this is a team of 22 starters. Well, it might even be more than that, because everyone is getting their opportunities. This is one of the things Baroni's done the best. Is it just a case of the more footballers play, the better they get? Because it was difficult previously, say under Sarri, for example, when he only used 14, 15 players. Okay, maybe I'm not exactly right there, but you know what I mean. Generally the team was pretty similar. And so there's so much pressure. Say a guy like Luca Pellegrini, when he comes into the team, he's barely played for like 3 weeks. So I don't know, it's difficult to get yourself up to the grade if you've been sitting on the bench for so long.
The example is on the other side of the river, right? Hummels finally plays yesterday and get humiliated by Lukaku. He's in great advantage and stops, and Lukaku scores. So it's not easy, even for a great player like Hummels. If you don't play for a month and then suddenly you come in, it's difficult. You're rusty. You're lost a lot of things. Attitude of playing. So it's really difficult, and this is definitely an advantage. I want to point out that from the stadium, it looked like an easy goal from Deli-Bashiru. I watched it back on TV, and it wasn't easy at all. It was quite difficult. There was a Bologna defender on the line, and he put the ball between the defender and the left post. So it wasn't an easy goal, right? And I don't know. Did you think the ref would have given the penalty if he didn't score?
I was going to say it was quite a funny moment, because it was such an obvious penalty on Isaacson. He went kind of flying through the air. And it was like the entire stadium was so busy protesting a penalty that they kind of forgot to celebrate the goal. And there's this kind of weird few seconds where it took everyone to realize that a goal had been scored and we could celebrate, and we didn't need to. It's like turning that emotion from anger into happiness really quickly.
I thought the funniest thing about that was the Bologna goalkeeper, who was already protesting for the penalty, and then so they scored and said, "Off."
Yeah, but I mean, that goal's a good example, isn't it, of what we're talking about with because Isaacson coming off the bench to set that up, and then Deli-Bashiru being the one to finish it. I do wonder, and I hope Deli-Bashiru gets a shot on Thursday. I think it would be nice to see him rewarded, and also it'd just be generally nice to see him get another run in that trequartista position.
Yeah, because in the last 4 games, he just played, without counting yesterday, he just played 10 minutes. So, he finished off the radar a little bit. And again, we said it, that it's due to the performance of Diao Pedro. But this is he's in the Nigeria national team. We're not talking about Scotland. We're talking about a big national team. So, if he's playing there, he should be good.
Slander against Scotland in this episode.
Hey, I was pointing on McTominay yesterday. Not a great match, huh? So,
well, I was hoping to see Lewis Ferguson yesterday, but didn't even get on the pitch.
I was happy about that. He's dangerous.
Yeah. What were you saying?
About Deli-Bashiru playing.
Yeah, exactly. And the Europa League has been such a refreshing competition in that way this year, and for so long it was the idea that it was the competition for our B team kind of fed into this general apathy that everyone had about the group stage in particular, and everyone kind of couldn't be bothered with it because we were playing boring teams and we were playing a boring version of our own team. Whereas now it's like that attitude has changed, not just with the team itself, but with the fans, because it's kind of exciting to see the rotated version of Lazio now, because we've already seen so much of these guys and their potential, and we know what the storylines are about what they can do better or worse, or who's fighting for a spot. And there are places open that if Deli-Bashiru, had an absolute blinder against Ludogorets, there's no reason he shouldn't be in with a shot of starting against Parma, for example. So the Europa League it's been a real revelation this season, the way that that competition's been embraced. And it'll be interesting this Thursday to see quite how much, because it's an early kickoff, and it's probably our kind of least sexy home game. So we'll see how interested people really are.
If you win Thursday, you're pretty much qualified. So it's really important, because let's not forget that now the fixture gets tricky. We have Parma away on Sunday, but then we have Napoli, Atalanta, Inter, Ajax, etc. It gets very complicated. So if we can, qualify already for the Europa League next stage, then you can relax a little bit. You don't get the qualification if you win this Thursday, but if you win and then you draw maybe against Ajax, it's pretty much over. And then you have Napoli, you have Inter, Atalanta. Those are tricky games. So it would be important to finish at least one of the competition as soon as possible. The other thing, Alasdair, I want to point out is, in the past, when Lazio was going ahead, we usually struggle to finish the game, right? I mean, I would expect to see Bologna in the last 5-10 minutes of yesterday attacking and creating chances. Instead, now with Baroni, if we score once, and it happened against Como and a lot of other games, then we score immediately another one and we finish the game off. That's really important, right? Because yes, they were one man down, but how often do we see things like that happens, right? They're one man down, we score, and suddenly with a corner kick, free kick, something, they find the equalizer and it's over the game.
Yeah, and even the Cagliari game, when they were down to 9 men, we still find ourselves kind of feeling nervous towards the end of that one. if you give a team a tight enough margin, there's always the chance of that one shot out of nowhere or that one corner kick or free kick or whatever. So yeah, really important to build up that gap, and I do love that approach from the team, the way that they want to get results beyond doubt as soon as they can. It takes the pressure off a bit as well. It means that the intensity of the game was lower for that final 10 minutes or whatever it was.
And you can rotate, right?
Relax.
You can take off Zaccagni, who looks like had a little problem. Instead, if you're 1-0 and, it's not finished, you start to think, well, if I take off Zaccagni, maybe they equalize and then we don't have our star to score again. So these are all things that come in discussion. And so it's really important for me to finish up games, even in a game where Tati Castigliano missed a couple of very good opportunities. Even in the second half with a header, Alasdair, I thought he scored there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know you have stunned the listeners with news of the invention of the aeroplane in this episode, but it is a big thing. I think
the aeroplane, yes, huge
travel in an international break, and he did all of that. I think he got 4 minutes off the bench when they lost to Paraguay. So I hope he enjoyed those 4 minutes for all that traveling. But yeah, I think that Baroni said after the game himself that was part of the reason he went with this 4-3-3, was that the attacking options were a bit more limited because Tati's had this massive journey and because of what Dia's been through in the break as well. So
yeah,
with that in mind, you would imagine Tati's not going to feature on Thursday. You'd imagine Dia will probably start as the striker unless Noslin gets a chance. And yeah, there's going to be, probably quite a big rotation, you would have thought.
Yeah, you were talking about the group. I saw this morning, rewatching the game, Noslin celebrating and laughing with Zaccagni, and he didn't get a minute yesterday. And, he's the most expensive signing we had this summer. He was coming after 6 great months at Verona. Baroni was his manager at Verona. So, he could have been probably the most unhappy player yesterday. I'm here, they paid me a lot of money, I had a terrific 6 months, and I'm not playing at all. Instead, he was there celebrating. That's another nice message about this group. I mean, again, I know people's going to hate me, but imagine Luis Alberto in that situation. It's not, I didn't like that much what Lotito said yesterday, but probably he's not that far from the reality, right? There were people inside the locker room that weren't focused on the team anymore. Do you think that this is one of the secrets of this performance?
Yeah, I do think everyone's bought into the idea that it's a squad and not a hierarchy. Everyone seems to believe in that, and so they should, because the results are there. It'd be a lot harder to say this, it's a 22-man squad and we're all equal and all the rest of it if we're losing every week, because then people will be unhappy. And look, you alluded to it earlier. I'm not ready to look at it properly yet because I'm scared of it, but December is a hell of a month for Lazio, and that will really be the moment where this form is tested properly.
And you know what's the problem, I think? If you go and see the table, Lazio have won the last 5 games, but so did Atalanta and Fiorentina. It's very positive because we're there, but we have to mention that for goal difference, we are 5th at the moment, even though we have the same points of Atalanta, Fiorentina, and Inter. And they keep winning. I mean, if you go and see the table, the first top 5 teams have won. Napoli, Inter, Fiorentina, Atalanta, and Lazio. And then there is Juventus and Milan who draw. And, so there's a little bit of gap there. But if you want to fight for the top 4, it's still very difficult. You still have to go and beat Atalanta, probably try to win against Napoli. So it's not easy. I mean, we are very pleased of what Lazio's doing, but we are not even in the Champions League at the moment. So it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. So can we imagine Lazio to keep winning all the games till December? It's difficult. Atalanta, Napoli, Fiorentina, Inter, difficult games, very difficult games. And if you don't win those three, then you could be watching at Christmas Lazio seventh in the league, right? So it's really important that we won this weekend because Milan Juventus drew. So you got a gap from them, but that's not huge gap, right? Especially from
But
Juventus.
I do also think, I've said this before, but I do also think it's really important that if things do start to go wrong in that period, we don't panic about it. And I do hope, because the reason I brought this up was what you were saying about the squad and everyone being friends and happy and smiling and all the rest of it. I do hope they can maintain that kind of attitude and togetherness through difficult times as well as good times. Because if there's one thing we haven't seen this season, it's the squad's reaction to adversity and difficulty, because it's been good pretty much from day one. I mean, that game in Udinese is about the only bad moment we've had, really, apart from the Fiorentina game. But even then, the performance was all right. So, yeah, I think that we can't get too upset if results start turning a bit, because we're not going to win every game for the rest of the season. And I think just being able to challenge these top teams, it'll be a real gauge of quite how good we are, because at the moment, what it kind of suggests to me a little bit when you see Fiorentina, Atalanta also doing the same thing, or Napoli and Inter and so on, is that the rest of the league isn't that good. They aren't able to challenge this team. There shouldn't be so many teams having these amazing winning runs. Someone should be able to stop them, but nobody can. So it's turning into almost two league tables in the league at the moment, and that's great because it gives us that comfort blanket. And even if you're separated a bit from Inter, Napoli, fine. But the important thing is, by this stage, we've already created this gap, even over Milan, and over Juventus now, and Roma are, miles away. So that in itself is really encouraging. You've almost like earned yourself the right to have some bad results because you've got a bit of breathing space.
Yeah, I would say that if Lazio start losing games, don't panic. Do what I do always. Blame Alasdair for that. So, that's quite easy. But Alasdair, are you getting a little bit concerned about this injury? Because Nuno Tavares out, Castrovilli, who knows when he's going to be back. Patrick didn't warm up yesterday. I don't know what's going on with the Spaniard, but I think he's not 100% fit. Romagnoli was subbed at the end of the first half. It doesn't look anything serious, but I don't think he's playing on Thursday. And then Zaccagni came off. Again, nothing serious, but, we're playing a lot of games. Injury are wrapping up. Players are getting fatigued. You were mentioning we have 22 players, which is not enough for the competition. Are you concerned that with the cold weather, today is freezing in Rome, yesterday was freezing at the stadium, do you think with the bad weather, with a lot of games, Lazio will start struggling with injuries and players not fit?
For anyone else listening who's from a cold weather country, Italians are convinced that you get injured if you play football when it's cold. Just need to translate that bit. Well, look, I think that with this period of like unbelievably relentless games, these 3 international breaks, I'm actually thinking it's okay at the moment. Like, it could have been a lot worse. I was worried a couple of months ago, looking at how many games we had coming up, thinking, wow, this team's going to fall apart. I'm really impressed with Guendouzi and Ravella in particular, who are just kind of superhuman in terms of their levels of performance and regularity in the team. And there's not that, there's niggles here and there. Tavares, supposedly, Baroni said yesterday that it's not that bad and he shouldn't miss many games. And at the moment, it seems to be small things here and there rather than any big problems. So, yeah, hopefully that can continue. I mean, it's not really the weather so much as the the intensity of the matches that is the concern for me, and that's why he needs to. Baroni's rotation is so important, not just in terms of the performances we're getting from it, but in terms of maintaining everyone's fitness and freshness, and not really taking risks with people's health. I mean, he said that with Dia. I mean, Dia would normally have started yesterday, but he didn't want to risk him. So,
Yep.
And he's able to do that because other people in the squad are able to continue performing at that level.
Just to point out, I know you're Scottish and you're used to bad pitch, but what I was talking about bad weather is yesterday the Stadio Olimpico was it was terrible. The pitch was dreadful, and it still didn't rain heavily here in Rome. So in the next month, that pitch would be a disaster, and it won't be the only one. I know that in a Scottish league you're used to that type of pitch, but here when you're playing real football, it can bring to injuries and problems.
Yeah, I'd rather have the Ross County pitch than the Olimpico pitch. It's beautiful.
Well, I think every pitch is better than the Stadio Olimpico. I mean, they didn't play for 2 weeks, and it was a disaster yesterday. You could see that the pitch was half frozen. There weren't grass in some part of the pitch, and they had 2 weeks of break. What are they doing? I mean, who is in charge of the pitch of the Stadio Olimpico? Nobody, because it was really bad.
I think we can hear, Vittorio, that a Scottish policeman has arrived at your door to arrest you for all these bad things you're saying. Your dog's trying to eat him.
Yeah, my dog doesn't love when I talk bad about Scotland. I don't know. Maybe he's Scottish in his heart. Who knows? Anyway, I mean, I'm concerned because let's not forget, you mentioned it. We have Guendouzi and Rovella. That's it. Vecino yesterday started. I didn't think he had a great match, but apart from that, if Castrovilli doesn't recover fast, which I don't think is going to happen, we don't have that many options there, right, Alasdair?
Well, the thing is, by this stage, you in normal circumstances, you could think, well, can we just hold on until January and then don't worry because the club will have already had this arranged. They'll know who's available, who we can get. Bring in the reinforcements in January because it's such an obvious issue. But we're talking about Lazio, so there's absolutely, we can guarantee that another winger will arrive from, I don't know, the Spanish second division or something. And
yesterday was Iglitare at the stadium. Maybe he suggested Fabiani to sign a winger instead of a central midfielder. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think it was the first time he was at the stadium watching Lazio after he left.
Yeah, interesting. Well, hopefully he hasn't actually suggested that. I wouldn't be that surprised. But yeah, no, I mean, look, that is the main cause of concern squad-wise, isn't it? We just have to hope those guys somehow manage to keep up this level because it's so impressive what they're doing. And we're so dependent on them.
Yeah, and we have 2 games ahead that are probably the easiest one we have, but very important. I mean, if you win against Ludogorets, we mentioned it already, you are still going to be top of the table in Europa League. And if you win away against Parma, you could hope that finally Fiorentina or Atalanta will drop points. Now I don't know against who they're playing, those 2 teams. But hopefully...
Atalanta have got Roma. They're here on Monday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Fiorentina, Inter. So I hope one of the 2 is going to lose points, right? It's mathematics.
Yes. Yeah, big weekend in that regard, yeah. I mean, I still think Atalanta have to be Roma, surely. But Fiorentina, Inter, yeah. I mean, something's got to give there. So... It's an incredible season, though. Like this 1 point gap between the top 5 teams.
Yeah, it's incredible. You're not convinced that Ranieri is going to bring back Roma in the Champions League spots? I mean, yesterday, great performance, right?
No, I'm not, Vittorio.
I think
we did enough on Roma in the Q&A episode last time, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the last 3 years, I never saw a big team playing with 5-man defense as Roma did yesterday in the second half.
Was it only 5?
Well, he put Hummels instead of, who was it, Pellegrini. So there were really 5-man defenders in the pitch.
Yeah, well, Ranieri's going to Ranieri, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But
we'll see.
anyway, we're going to be back after Lazio Ludogorets, I hope. And then there is Parma Lazio on Sunday, right? I think it's, what is it? 3 o'clock kickoff. This is embarrassing. Come on. We're playing on Thursday and then on Sunday at 3 o'clock while Roma is playing the day afterwards. This is another thing we have to talk about. Lazio is playing a lot of games and the Serie A is never giving enough gap to recover, right? I mean, Sarri would have been nuts about that, would have been crazy completely about that, right?
Yes, you're right. I mean, we've got the early kickoff at least on Thursday, so that probably makes up the time, doesn't it? Because Roma are away in Tottenham.
Yeah, but they have more than 24 hours.
Well, yeah, that is true. You could at least give the late slot. The problem there is that the late slot is always the main TV game, isn't it? So they're not going to give Parma Lazio the 8:45 Sunday kickoff, are they?
Well, there's Lecce Juventus on Sunday night. Come on, let's be serious.
Oh,
I mean, I can imagine people from US and Australia waking up for that game, right? I mean, they're never gonna miss Lecce Juventus.
Yeah.
Anyway,
could be a cracker. I think Lecce have scored about 2 goals all season.
Yeah, and they're already on
maybe 3.
Already on the second manager. So yeah, I mean, maybe we should do a podcast another time about who's managing Serie A football. I think they're crazy. They have nothing to do with football. But we are talking about Lazio. So thanks everybody for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. And we'll be back probably on Friday if Alasdair is available, which hardly happens, but who knows. Thanks, Alasdair, for joining me.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.